Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 7th episode of What's the Game Plan, presented by Unmasked. My name is Lamar Barrett, and I am the creator of the podcast and docuseries Unmasked. Being a former high school and college coach for more than 22 years, there are so many untold stories behind the scenes as a college basketball coach. Unmasked was created for the basketball fan that wants to know the behind-the-scenes activities that go on as a college coach. For the young aspiring coach that wants to get into the profession, but thinks coaching is what they see on TV when coaches are wearing the shiny suit. And for the professional that can take tidbits to better their career in their field of work. Tonight, What's the Game Plan episode will be unmasking the scouting process from the beginning to the end, from the film room to the court. The creator of What's the Game Plan and moderator for tonight's roundtable is Carolyn Smalls. Carolyn hails from Long Island, New York, and attended Salisbury University in Salisbury, Maryland. She currently resides in Baltimore and teaches physical education in Howard County, Maryland, while completing her master's degree. She is also coaching basketball with the Maryland-based AAU Team United Basketball Club. She's an aspiring women's college basketball coach. Ladies and gentlemen, Coach Carolyn Smalls.
Thank you, Omar, again for that intro. As always, I am really excited for tonight's What's the Game Plan. I was saying earlier, just this topic of scouting has really been what I've been very interested in recently and have been wanting to know and learn from some really great basketball minds just about their process and, what they really put into it. So I'm really excited to have on our three coaches for tonight. Coach Carver, Coach Anderson, and Coach Caldwell. Really, really excited to just get to know you three a little better and to dive into your process as well. So if the three of you just want to go and introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about you, how you got to where you are, that would be great, just so we can kind of get to know you a little bit before we start. And Coach Caldwell, if you want to go first, that would be awesome.
I knew that would happen. No, I'm Coach Crystal Caldwell. I go by Coach Chris on the court, but just finished up my first year at Virginia Tech and recently accepted a head coaching position at Pace Academy in Atlanta, Georgia. So started this thing about 6 years ago at LaSalle University and has just been running ever since. And, I always wanted to get into coaching and absolutely love what it brings as far as the experiences are concerned and the relationships that you build, not only with, colleagues, but also the young ladies, and having an opportunity to build those relationships with them and watching them grow is why, I've gotten into this and I do it every day. So it's been a journey, it's been exciting, and I'm just looking forward to everything else that has to come with it.
Thank you. Coach Carver, if you want to introduce yourself next.
All right, my name is Mandy Carver. I am the associate head women's basketball coach at Fresno State. Going into my 8th season at Fresno State. I was also at San Jose State and Cal State Bakersfield, so I've only coached in California. Before that, I played 7 seasons professionally throughout Europe. And I can't imagine doing anything else other than being involved in basketball and getting the opportunity to be around these young people and learn from them and help them grow into strong females that I feel like can go change the world. So I think I have the best job. And even though we work crazy hours, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And the last but certainly not least, Coach Anderson, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself as well.
Okay, my name is Brittany Anderson. I just finished my first year as an assistant at Stanford University. This is my first time ever living in California. I enjoyed it. Let's see, 8th year coaching. And to be quite honest with you, I graduated from college and swore up and down I'd never be a college basketball coach. And here I am. So I absolutely enjoy it. I love it. I don't know how I didn't coach for so long. Love helping these young women. Love seeing the light bulb go off. Love seeing them get it. And just love seeing them kind of figure out what they want to do in life. And then I just knew how much basketball did for me growing up, just building confidence or helping you figure out how tough and how strong you are, and helping these young women realize that is why I do what I do.
Awesome, thank you. I don't know how many people on here know, but I'm sure most of people on here know that Stanford women's basketball team just won the national championship. So Coach Anderson's being pretty modest, but we'll clap it up for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Coach.
Of course, I'm really excited. I want to dive in just to your process. So if you all could just take us from step one, from deciding what games to watch when you're going to scout, to what you're writing down, taking notes on. Just what is your process like throughout the whole scout and building a scout, from beginning all the way to practice and then implementing it during the game? Coach Caldwell, if you want to start us off again.
All right. Typically early on in the season, once the schedule is finalized, the assistants will kind of get together and break up the schedule evenly. We all do scouts, and so we'll pretty much rotate every 2 or 3 games. And then once you get into conference play, you have a certain team that you're going to scout throughout the year, no matter if you play them once or twice. So you do it that way. And then me personally, as far as my process, it depends on who the opponent is, and it depends on their style, whether they're going to run man-to-man defense, what they run offensively, what they're going to do defensively, and how they match up with us. And so I try to find teams that are very similar to us in a way, and then that determines what teams that I'm going to look at from there. And then I try to watch anywhere between 5 to 6 games. And I watch the full game, break it down personnel wise, what they're going to run offensively, defensively, against man and zone on both sides of the ball, and then just really go from there and then try to figure out a scheme and what we're going to do in order to beat that team. And then once I finish that piece, I try to put it all together, and then we put it on a scout on a paper portion, and present it to the players. But before that even happens, we put it in front of our head coach and kind of see what he likes, what he doesn't like, and then what we're going to put in front of the team as far as a scheme is concerned. So there's really a lot that goes into it. I think everyone has their own way of doing things, and you kind of have to find your comfort level and what works for you, and then just kind of go with it. But that's just a short version of what I do and what goes into it.
And Coach Carver or Coach Anderson, what about you, the process? And if you want to dive deep into it, feel free. If not, that's okay as well.
So I'll piggyback off of what Crystal said. All of those steps do the same thing. I think the thing that was different for me this year, and I'd never been in this situation until I worked for Tara, was you're watching film, you're preparing the scout, you're doing the paper scout, you're doing the clip tape for the players. Here we uploaded it on Huddle, certain clips of players doing certain things, they watch that. We also try to upload some stuff on Huddle for the players to look at, as far as like how teams scored on them, to see how we can be successful in the area. But we also, and it was hard for me to grasp, but if you want to be a head coach, I understood why she did it. We basically presented the scout on the board to the team before the game. And we stood up there, we presented it, and it's the first time I've ever been in that situation. It was nerve-wracking. I was so nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, I've never been in this situation. But Tara, if you want to be a head coach, that's what Tara's trying to help prepare you for, and not let that first time of you presenting to a team be like you're a head coach and now you're presenting to the team and you've never done it before. So that was something for me to get used to, because you're up in front of the team, you're presenting everything, going over everything you went over. Tara's very big on tendencies. Okay, how do they like to score? How can we take that away? She looks at numbers. She plays percentages. She's gonna work really hard not to let you score how you want to score. And she spends a lot of time watching film. And in watching the film, she knows, and I think a lot of head coaches do watch film. All the head coaches I've worked for watch film. There's certain things they pick up on, and if they pick up on that thing, you have to pick up on that as well. So if it's something that they're wanting the team to be prepared to play against, that's something you have to do as well. But I think the biggest change for me is sometimes you might work for a coach that's going to say, hey, before the game, you have to present, you have to go through personnel, you have to go through the plays. You have to go through our defensive scheme. You have to go through transition defense, how we're going to score offensively in transition. So just, and it depends on what every coach wants. But I think as assistants, it's very important to everybody be on the same page as far as how they're presenting the scout, are using the same terminology. Are you going through it step by step the same way, just so that these student athletes can understand what, okay, get in some type of routine, but understand what we're trying to do. And I think also with athletes nowadays, you can't just throw, and it's nothing against them, but you can't just throw a whole lot of stuff at them. It has to be key things that you're trying to take away or key things you're trying to do. So if I'm showing some film of a player and she likes to drive right, I'm going to show a lot of clips of her driving right. Because once you show a clip of them driving left, it throws them completely off. And you just have to limit kind of what you give them. Like, okay, she's shooting 15% from three. When you go to your clip tape, you can't put in a clip of her hitting a three because it throws them completely off, because they're like, I thought you said she can't shoot. Because with a lot of players, it's either all the way over here or all the way over there. They don't understand, like, I hate to use this terminology, a squirrel finds a nut every now and again. Like, they're just not going to shoot over. They're a Division I athlete. So try to like help them see it that way, so that it's not to where they see one thing and they can't let it go because you said she can't do that. So that was one of the things where I had to get better in the area, because I'm just like, you have to understand she can play, but you have to kind of stick to those things that you know that they like to do.
Can I share my screen? Is that possible?
Yeah,
Oh, it is. Yeah.
I believe so. Let me double check.
Okay, so this is kind of how we break things down. And it looks a little bit in depth, but it's kind of our process. So we start with the transition, because, and we need to be better defensively, but we are very good offensively. So we want to know, especially in transition, like how they are going to defensive transition, how many they're going to drop. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they going to pick us up? Are they going to cover the rebound? Those type of things. Are they going to deny gap? Do they play scout defense? We set a lot of on balls. So knowing how they're going to guard on balls, how they're going to guard off balls, post defense, are they going to front, be behind, trap on the catch? Are they going to play zone? What do they do with a high post catch or short corner catch? Will they trap or buzz out of it? And then baseline and sidelines, just knowing if they're going to be in zone and special situations. So maybe they play zone all game, but at the end, when we're in an advanced situation, now they're in man. So we make sure that we have all of that kind of covered with our clips. And this is all discussed in our coaches' film. So we have all of our coaches meet 2 days prior to the game. And so we're all talking about the game plan. The person whose job it is to do the scout is presenting it and giving the game plan. So, if they are trapping, what's our idea within our system of how to combat that? And then their offense, again, is it, a middle transition up the side? They're basic. We try to keep it basic for our kids. Like, as coaches, we want to know all the stuff, but is it mostly on ball? And if they do like an on ball offense, what does it break down to? Any quicks, and how and when, maybe out of a quarter, they're coming out and doing a certain quick every time. What would that break down into? And then similar with the zone, press break, baseline, sideline, and personnel. We're pretty big on personnel, their tendencies, their range, and how to cover. We talk about that within our scout. So, are they right-handed, left-handed, right shoulder, left shoulder, 3-point range, 15-foot range, and then how to cover. So we talk about, like, we're going to close to the shot. So if they have deep range, we're going to close all the way out to the shot. Or if they're not a 3-point shooter, we're going to close short and then up if they look like they're going to pull the shot. So we constantly talk in those terms. And then making sure end of game, we know kind of what they're going to do in an advanced situation, timeouts. So there's a lot of people that we play that won't call a timeout. And I think with having the option to advance the ball, you get used to like, oh, someone's just going to get the rebound, call a timeout. You can hesitate. And so knowing that, hey, they're going to not call a timeout because they've done that in their 3 previous close games. And some people have like super subs that come in at the end of the game. So making sure we're aware of all of that. And then again, how to defend all of that. Some of the tips that we use. So when we're short on time, one of the things like, you know, maybe a coach got sick, especially with COVID this year, there could be a lot of different things that happen where you were maybe thinking you had a scout and then someone went out and was sick. So one way that we do, that you can do when you're short on time, is we just sort through and look at how did they score? So just looking at their made shots. So they, you know, you think that they run this awesome on-ball offense, but they literally only score, you know, 3 times when they run it in a game. They're really scoring off of like offensive rebounds or driving kicks off the on-ball, that it's a breakdown situation. So we'll look at that when we've been short on times, and then how others won or how people got stops against them. And then again, coming up with the game plan. And sometimes if you have a little bit of extra time watching the live broadcast to get kind of some of the extra info, I feel like the announcers sometimes know all the stuff like, oh, she sprained her ankle in practice 2 days ago, or, you know, this player's out because of this, and helps you kind of build the game plan, knowing kind of all those extra details. And then we have a lot of paperwork that we look at as coaches. And then sometimes we show the players like shooting charts, especially. So one thing that we do in our zone defense, and it's a big secret, no one knows it, but we don't guard the high post catch. So when the ball goes to the high post, we kind of bluff like we're going to guard it, but we stay back. And our players, especially in their first year, that it freaks them out. Like they don't get that concept. So we have to show them. And we have lots of evidence that with our shooting charts that it's a poor percentage shot for a lot of people in our conference. And they don't make it that often. So we can actually show that to them, and it makes them feel a little more calm with that game plan. One other thing that I will share is, so sometimes when you play different teams, they have like a certain offense that can be a little bit tricky. So when we play Colorado State, they run power, which a lot of NBA teams run. So it's just kind of like a mid post. And then you have someone else that reads off of the post catch, and everyone kind of rotates around the 3-point line. So we do a separate scout just for Colorado State, so that, you know, okay, number 23, she wants to go right hand to score, force her into a contested jump shot, we can. So this is a completely separate thing that we do outside of the scout. And it's just, again, for this team, because it's kind of a special way to guard, because all these players will be in that position, and they all are a little bit different. And we'll do that within the week of preparation, making sure that whoever's going to guard 11 knows how to guard her, and we're pretty clear, and make sure that they can understand that concept. But I think the best part of being able to do a scout is like Brittany said, is you kind of get to be like the acting head coach. And it's really fun when you have like male practice players, and you get to like teach them and take them through it, and you get to run that team for the week. That I think that's really fun. And then the head coach gets mad if you win. So that's where I think as assistants, we get a little bit of secret joy out of that.
Awesome. I love that. There was so much from all those 3 answers that I'm definitely gonna dive back into and take some notes on. To kind of piggyback off of Coach Anderson, she was referencing this, my next question is, in terms of head coaches, what are some differences that you've noticed in how they want scouts done or delivered? It could be a really small example or just a bigger example, but just what are some of the differences that they may emphasize, or differences from head coach to head coach? If you could share that with us.
I think I'll stay on trend and I'll go ahead and start it. I think it definitely depends on the head coach and their personality and kind of philosophy and what's really important to them. For instance, the coach that I played for at West Virginia, I ended up working for him for 3 years. And he was very focused in on defense. So we knew that, when we brought the scout to him, we had to be on point with everything that the team was going to do offensively, because he really hung his hat on being able to stop people, being able to put that defensive pressure and the intensity on the other team. So that was quick hitter. What continuities are they going to run? What are the tendencies of the personnel? Being able to give that to him so that we can see how we're going to guard it defensively. But his biggest thing was we were going to stick to our tendencies defensively. We're not going to switch up what we do depending on what the other team runs offensively. We're going to stick to our principles, and that's what we're going to do in order to stop them. Now, we may tweak it every now and then. Instead of hedging a ball screen, we may ice, depending on what team we run. Whether it's, if they have 3-point shooters, or are they going to have a bunch of drivers. So we may switch up the way we defend ball screens, but as far as our overall defense, we were going to stick to those principles. And then this year, I worked for a coach that was extremely offensive minded, so that was a huge switch, going from West Virginia to Virginia Tech. It's like, we're going to make sure that we can stop people, but we're also going to try to outscore you too. So I think it just takes time for you to get to know your head coach and what's important to them. And, you still want to know every detail in the scout, because like Britt mentioned earlier, there's always that one player that wants to know a certain detail. And if you don't have the answer for them, that's not going to be a good situation for you. So you, as the scout coach for that game, you want to know everything in and out, but you also want to make sure that you have the main details of what's important to your head coach. And again, that takes time. You can't do it in a year. You pick up on a lot and you learn it, but you really have to know the main focus for your head coach. And I think that comes with building that relationship and sitting in with your head coach and watching film and having those conversations, and you'll pick up on it fast. There's certain things that they're always going to talk about, and it's like, okay, this is what's important to them. So you take those mental notes, and then that's what you put in front of them when you're presenting that scout. So long story short, to answer your question, it just depends on your head coach and what's important to them as far as their philosophy.
So I worked for 3 head coaches. The first head coach I worked for, we had to memorize the other team's plays, and we couldn't look at the plays we had drawn up. So in order to walk the team through it. And that was something that was big to him. I thank him for it now. But at the time, I just felt like I was cramming and trying to figure it out. So I worked for a coach where you had to memorize the plays and you had to go out there and walk the team through it, and you couldn't look at it. So I was like, my nerves are bad about that. But it helped me in scouting just to where I am now, that it's become a habit and I'm able to do that. He also was big on terminology, which I think a lot of coaches, some are, some aren't. They want to use the same terms for this different things that maybe we do, the other team does, to help the team learn it better. And then, like Crystal said, I worked for a coach. It was the same coach. We worked for the same coach who was very offensive driven. And it's kind of like, okay, take them through the other team's plays. And he was looking at how to beat them or outscore them, whereas like I was more focused on, okay, how are we going to stop them? And he took ideas, and if you give him ideas and he thinks that they can do it, then that's fine. And then being here, it just was full disclosure, Tara knows everything and has seen everything as far as basketball. Like she's seen it all. So it's one of those things where you go to explain something to her and she has a term that she's going to use for it or how she wants to show it. And you just kind of roll with how she wants to show it and how she wants to do it. But I think every coach has their niche, they have their thing that they want the team to see and how they want the team to see it. And you kind of roll with it. But like Crystal said, it takes time to kind of see how they want things done and be able to do things how they want things done. But I think there's across the board, you have to know what the other team, what they're trying to do, how they're trying to score. And then the terminology has been a big piece, big part of it as well. But I think those are questions you have to ask your boss when it comes to scouting, just flat out up front. Sometimes you have to say, okay, what are your expectations? What do you want? Give me an example of a good scout that somebody has done for you that maybe I can learn from and see how they did it. And then just kind of go from there. But depending on who you're playing, sometimes a scout could look a little bit different depending on how the other team plays. But you just have to, ask those questions. And then like Crystal said, if they keep bringing something up and they're not directly telling you, okay, that's what they want done. They just kind of throwing it out there to see if you pick it up. So you kind of have to pick up on it on your own.
I think one thing that's really important to my boss now in the scouting process is that the team has success with the game plan. So sometimes we have to maybe game the system a little bit so that the game plan has success, especially because we have practice players that it's maybe a little unrealistic that their size or their quickness or the things that they can do. So we have to kind of rein them in so that our team has success during the scout. The other coaches I've worked for, it's been mostly about us. Like, okay, they run this, they do that, but it's what do we do? Like, we're going to focus more on us, like 90% on us, 10% on the scout. And then for us here, we are focused on player personnel, but as far as like showing the team clips of player personnel, that's on them to watch and know themselves. So we have, the fancy app that they can just do it on their phone and they can watch those personnel clips. We don't spend time as a team going over the personnel. And the best thing is we can track if they've watched it or not. So sometimes we have to pull out those stats, which is shocking to them when we do that. But it's a good way to hold them accountable and make sure that, you're the one guarding this player. You should be invested in how to stop them and looking at those clips. So that has saved us time when, film time is really valuable once you get in the season, and trying to save those minutes to use it as best as possible. We found that was really helpful. But again, every coach is going to have their things that they're more focused on and that's important to them. And like I said, the first pages that I shared my screen, that's our process, and it seems a little intense, but that has that's how my boss likes it. That's how she wants to see it, and that's how we do it. So not everyone has that of a detailed breakdown in the scouting process.
Great. Yeah, there's a lot of variation and from template from what you want on it. So I definitely understand that. How has your scouting process changed and developed from when you first started to now? Kind of what has that process been like? Coach Caldwell, if you want to start us off again.
I think the very first time I had to do it, I was extremely nervous because like they both mentioned, my first boss was he's very open, to how we wanted to do things. He knew that everyone kind of had their way and what was comfortable for them. But I worked with a couple of other assistants that had been coaching for a while, so they kind of knew what they were doing. They memorized the plays when they were out there. So it kind of put the pressure on me early to learn and to really dive into things. And I think because of that, I've gotten a lot better, a lot faster. But just over time, working for different coaches and being alongside different assistants, you pick up on different things and you kind of see things differently. If you listen to another coach present a scout, it's like, oh, I didn't see it that way. So then you make a note of it. And then the next time that you watch film, you see those kind of things. And so you just add it to the way that you do things. And then eventually you find your own style. Kind of just kind of have to go. And anything else over time, you get better with it. And it just kind of becomes natural for you. So that's kind of on it. I've added something every single year to the way that I do things. And I think it just comes with growth as a basketball coach. And, you just kind of go with it.
Coach Anderson, you're up next.
Okay, so I will piggyback off of what Crystal said. I agree with everything she says. I feel the same. You pick up on different things as you work with different assistants. But I also think different teams can retain more. And so you have to figure out how much you can give them. I use myself as an example this year. I came from Virginia Tech last year. It's my first year at Stanford. Stanford's a different type of athlete. And Tara told me at the beginning of the season, these are the type of players who you show them something one time or you give them a play call, and you could be walking through plays and they'll be like, remember this play? And one of the players did it, and this was the play call. They were like, you remember this play? And I was like, oh yeah, that play. So I think you have to know the type of athlete that you are coaching. You have to know what they can retain and how they learn. And I think for me, every year has changed and it's been different. And I think some are like, we use the app, they have the app, they can look at it. We look at the stats. It kind of makes us mad sometimes when you look at them, but some of them can look at it on there and they're good. Like they'll look at it on there. Some of them want to sit with you and watch it again with you and talk through it and ask you questions. So I think it just, for me, it has depended on, okay, players change every year. Your team is different every year. Your strengths change, your weaknesses change every year, but trying to figure out how to help the group the best is kind of, it can be challenging in the beginning because you're trying to get them ready and acclimated for the season. But I think when you have freshmen coming in, scouting is new to them. They don't really understand. So you have a new group of freshmen and they're like, okay, wait, I'm trying to figure out what we're running. You want me to remember what they're running? So like that, trying to help them with that. I think it just changes every year as your team changes and athletes change. But I've picked up on different things from people I've worked with, learned there's a ton of different terminology for the exact same actions. It just depends on what that staff uses.
And Coach Carver.
Yeah, so what Coach Crystal said is like, I probably have been that coach where we've had new assistants come in and they've probably been scared to death because they're just doing it for the first time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we all know that's what they do, So that made me feel a little bit like, I need to be better. And I've been in the same league basically my entire coaching career and on the West Coast. So I feel like I know all the teams and know what they do. It's gotten easier over time because once you've been in the same league, a lot of times coaches don't change that much and you're more familiar with the players. So that tends to get easier and easier. And, now, and as more games are accessible, I think, online or even like with the Pac-12 network out on the West Coast, there's games being on TV. I feel like I'm watching games all the time. So you can kind of already start to do some of that scout just by being a fan of the game. It really helps make the scouting process a little bit easier. And then similar with what Brittany said, in like this year, we had a point guard that, in the middle of the game, there's a free throw and we're telling her, hey, when they're calling blue, it's this. And we had gone over it, but it was black when we went over and scout. And she's like, okay, got it. I can tell everyone what's up. But our sophomore point guard, we couldn't even tell her that there was a play called blue or a play called black because that was just like not for her. So knowing what they can handle in terms of like play calls or actions. And for us, we don't have the high caliber students and athlete, like we have kind of a mix of that. So not all of them can take all of that direction. There's a few that can in certain areas, and trying to play to those strengths. And sometimes it's not even our point guard. Sometimes our center is more equipped to know, like, okay, they're running this action. I can help everyone understand what that is. And just understanding what they're capable and not overwhelming them. I think because we have all this technology and, we're so invested as coaches, I think we can sometimes just be like, oh, and they do this and that. And, oh, remember they did this that one time, and being a little more comfortable to dial it back. I think the first time I presented a scout, I probably had like 800 clips. And I was like, oh, we're going to watch all of these offenses. I know every single one of them. I've labeled them all. And, all these defenses, and every time they did something different. And my boss was like, good Lord, we're going to be here for 5 hours. I don't have that much time. So that, I think, it was a quick lesson when I first started doing scouts. Now I get in there, I'm like, I got 50 clips, go, we're good. All right, let's roll. So it's gotten a lot easier that way as well.
Yeah, just all a learning process. I know even for the classes that I teach, even within the same grade, different classes can retain information differently in larger quantities and smaller quantities. So it really just kind of depends. And I really like that. So my next question was, what do you find most difficult or the easiest to look for or evaluate while you're doing a scout? So Coach Caldwell, if you want to start us off again. So the most difficult or the easiest?
Honestly, I would say once you get deeper into the season, a lot of coaches will put in new things, and people at that point, it's gotten a lot, and kind of develops a lot more. So, you may watch as a scouting coach, you may watch a lot of games, and it's like Coach said, I know what they do off, I know what they do defensively, but it never fails. The day before, they put in a play just for you, or they put in something defensively just for you. And the players are looking at you like, Coach, where did that come from? And it's like, that is when you kind of have to, when you have to dive in and say, okay, hey, this is when we're going to lock in and stick to what we do as a team. And this is when we go back to our principles, and no matter what, we know that we can still be successful, because coaches are going to coach. There's a lot of really intense, smart coaches out there, and they're game planning for you, and they're going to do that at times. So you have to be ready for when they kind of throw that wrench out there, and be able to respond to it, and let your players know that you can't panic as a coach, because when they see you rattled and on the edge, they feed into that, so you have to stay calm and let them know, like, hey, we're fine. Yes, we didn't go over that, but this is what we're going to do to counter it. And as long as you're prepared and ready to go with that, you're going to be fine. So I would honestly say that's the biggest challenge, just kind of not knowing what's in front of you when you do get in front of some of these really great coaches.
Coach Anderson?
She took my answer. That was my answer. They might put something in at shoot around the night before, and you have to stay, they do feed off your energy. You have to stay calm. You can't lose it at that moment. Kind of let them know it's okay, because they will put in something, or they'll have a wrinkle, and it's just for you, and you've never seen it before that game, and you can watch them play the next game, and they're not going to run it anymore. They just run it against you. So then if they score off of it, it irritates you even more. That's the burning thing. That's pretty much it. You said the easiest thing?
Yeah, the easiest or most difficult?
I'll say probably the easiest part, I'll add to the easiest part of scouting is when you have your upperclassmen have played against a team, and they can kind of help the freshman or maybe a transfer, because they know kind of what this team does, and they kind of know how the team plays, so they can kind of get your message across. Because sometimes we say things all the time, but if they hear it from their teammate, it registers different. So if you have upperclassmen, I know this year having the upperclassmen that we had, they kind of understood the league, they understood what we were going against. That kind of made it easier for especially the freshmen, because we ended up starting a freshman as we got halfway through the season. They kind of were able to talk her through stuff and help her through it, because we played everybody twice this year. So that makes it a little bit easier when they know the other team.
Great. Coach Carver?
I would say one of the most difficult things for me is play calls. Gosh, sometimes that is so hard. Like when they're like, and it ends up being like, oh, that was 31. And I was like, how was that 31? Like that to me, and our kids are like, oh my God, you didn't even know that was 31. Yeah, I didn't. So that one's hard for me. The other thing is sometimes you play teams where they don't even know what they're doing. So if they have like a complicated offensive set and you're watching it and you're like, they don't know it, how am I going to figure this out? That typically happens like in the preseason, or when there's like a new coach that has taken over a team, they're trying to do something and whoa, can't figure that out. Or there's a lot of teams, like in our league, there are teams that do some crazy defensive schemes. So like after 5 passes, they'll go man. When the shot clock's at like 15 seconds, they say a color and now they're in zone. So sometimes you can see that's happening, but maybe you can't see the clock, or you don't know that they called a color. And so you're like, what is the trigger for that to happen? So that can be kind of challenging. But I would say, similar to what Brittany said, when you have a veteran team, the scout is so much easier, because they just know how it's going to be. Like, oh, this team presses. Like I said, Colorado State, they run power, and so our girls already know, oh, it's Colorado State week. We're gonna do the power scout. So that helps. And again, when you've been there for a longer amount of time, you're going to have kids that just know the terminology, and that makes life a lot easier.
For sure. My last question is, what's a particular detail or area that you focus on that you think brings your scouting report to the next level? Maybe it's something that you didn't do before, but what do you think is something that you do that kind of brings it up to that next notch? Coach Caldwell, if you want to start us off again.
Yeah, sure. I'm really big on tendencies, because, no matter what scheme you put in, no matter what defense is in there, players are who they are. And so, if you can really lock into what they love to do, and their go-to moves and just kind of what they depend on throughout the game, I think that you have a really good chance at being successful. So again, I really lock in on those tendencies, and and what players are good, and their strengths and their weaknesses. And I honestly say that that's probably what's most important to me. Now, obviously, you want to know the details and ins and outs of the offense and defense, but I really think that you have to know the players, and be able to explain that to your kids as well, and so that they can lock in on it.
And Coach Anderson?
I'll say the same thing Crystal said. Tendencies, knowing what they want to do, how they want to score, knowing which players at any given moment could do their own thing, just forget the play and attack the basket. But also knowing numbers, as well, as far as shooting percentage, I think helps a lot, especially in a game when you're like, okay, you're all right, continue to close out short, don't run all the way out there, just trying to put the ball on the floor. So just like little things like that, so that you can help them through the game. But I think tendencies is the biggest thing, just having a feel for like what they want to do.
I would say for me, it's end of game situations. I'm in charge of the end of game situations. So again, in the women's game, we can advance the ball under a minute. And so not only knowing my scout, but knowing everyone else's scout as well, and how they're going to defend in those end of game situations. Man zone, are they going to, put their 6'5" center on the ball, different things like that. And then also being able to draw the other team's end of game situation and then guess what you think they're going to do. So that one's a little trickier because, you're like, they've done, a couple different things to get threes off at the end of the game, and making sure that you're at least somewhat accurate. They're setting a flare screen, we've got to do this, or we're switching the on ball, just because again, in those moments, our kids are the most locked in and they're the most like paying attention. And so those moments have really helped us win a lot of games. And that has taken, I think, my scouting to another level, especially because it's pressure situations. So that nothing like that, like, whoo, that went well, or nope, didn't go so good. Had a couple of those, mostly this year.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I just want to open it up. I asked all my questions. If there's anyone in the Zoom that wants to go ahead and raise your hand or unmute, feel free to ask a question.
I guess I'll ask one. Hello, coaches. John Mandel Dove here at the Winchton, head girls coach here at the Winchton School. Y'all talked about tendencies and things of that nature. And I think one coach even brought up, like, particularly like one young lady that can possibly go off. What's the balance between having the clips for like the individual personnel, far as like, if they can go off in this play, versus like being I'll say it like this: a systematic player versus a player who just can get buckets. Like, how often do you focus in on the systematic players versus the kids who can just go out there and flat out play?
I think you have to focus on both, whether it be a system kid or a kid that just likes to get buckets. And I think once you watch enough game film where you can kind of pick that out, and I think that team and you present it to them, that you have so that they're ready for that. You give the system to them, but you also say like, hey, they're going to run this, but one pass, don't be surprised if, she just rips baseline and tries to go one-on-one. So you have to make sure that they're prepared for that at all times. So I don't think you focus in on one more than the other, but you just have to be really direct and make sure that they know like, hey, this is a play, but they're still going to play basketball at the end of the day. So you have to be prepared for that.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Coach.
Sorry.
Excuse me, I don't have a question. I have more of a, I do have a question, but it's more along the lines. Coach at Fresno State, do you have a young lady that's playing at Northeastern Junior College?
No, not that has played.
No, that is playing now. That's playing there now.
No. Not that I know of.
Congratulations to all you coaches. You're one of the reasons why I inspired to coach women's basketball. All aspects of it intrigued me early, and I just love the game and I love the way the women play. They one thing about the women, you teach them a play, they're gonna run that play exactly the way you want them to run it. So that's the best part of it for me.
Awesome. Well, I want to say thank you again to Coach Anderson, Coach Caldwell, Coach Carver. Thank you again for taking the time out and being on here with us, and really taking us through your process and your mindset and your mentality when doing your scouting reports. Definitely learned a ton, and really excited to just kind of implement this in the future. So I'm going to hand it over to Lamar to get us out of here.
I want to say thank you to the coaches again that was on the panel, Coach Coach Carver, Coach Anderson, and Coach Caldwell. Congratulations again to you, Coach Caldwell, for probably making a smart decision like I made 2 years ago of leaving the college game. And now you're back in high school. But no, I just want to say congratulations. Thanks again, Mandy. I know we've probably been on same Zooms for the last year together. And Coach Anderson, who was highly recommended, and congratulations to you as well. For winning national championship. I'm sure you were extremely excited. Plus, she's another Virginia girl. She's a home girl. So definitely want to say thanks to you, and thanks to the guests that's on the Zoom. I appreciate you guys for tuning in again. All the ones who have returned again, especially all the ones who've been here for all 7. And then I want to say thanks to our awesome moderator, Carolyn. Once again, you've done a tremendous job with What's the Game Plan Roundtable, the Unmasked brand. Thank you wholeheartedly for creating your own path. And I just want to say to everyone, have a great evening, and we look forward to seeing you on the next roundtable. Take care and stay safe.
LB.